Welcome to Lawyers Without Billboards, where we break down family law and other areas of the law. No gimmicks, no legal jargon, just real, unfiltered talk from real lawyers. Join your hosts, Steve, Patty, Jimmy, and Alexa, partners at Shewmaker Lewis, a law firm based in Atlanta, Georgia. Every episode, they tackle the legal questions that matter most: divorce, custody, child support, alimony, and everything in between. They'll pull back the curtain to give you real insights on what happens inside the courtroom and beyond.
Well, everything out there has a beginning and an end. So this is the beginning of a podcast that we're creating, and we're calling it Attorneys Without Billboards.
I thought we were lawyers.
Lawyers Without Billboards. Okay, fine. Let me write that down. Lawyers Without Billboards.
You made it up.
I know I made it up, but I get confused. Lawyers Without Billboards, brought to you by the law firm of Shewmaker Lewis, right here in Peachtree Corners, which is really Atlanta, Georgia, right? That's me, my wife and law partner, Patty Shewmaker, and my law partners, Alexa and her husband, who's also our law partner, Jimmy Lewis. Alexa and Jimmy Lewis, me and Patty Shewmaker. And we started thinking about podcasts because let me tell you something. There's a lot of bad podcasts. I mean, I go out there looking, basically begging to find good podcasts, and there's just not a lot of them. So then I started thinking, how hard could it be? And then I started also thinking, why would anybody want a podcast by a bunch of lawyers in Atlanta, Georgia? And I couldn't find a lot of them out there. And the few I found weren't that engaging. So I thought we should give it a shot. So I'm kind of excited about this. This is our introductory podcast. Now, the purpose of this podcast, y'all, is to basically talk about the field of law we practice, which is primarily domestic law, family law, matrimonial law, depending on what part of the country you're from, and some aspects of criminal law and some other things that we do. And who would be our audience? Who do you think our audience would be, Patty?
Well, I think my mom will listen.
Yeah, I think Carolyn will probably tune in. How about you, Alexa?
Oh, my dad, for sure.
Okay, well, besides our family members, who else do you think might listen?
We can
Clients.
make our associates listen.
We can make them listen. Yes, that's
we have
good.
employees, so
That's good. Yeah, compulsory participation is good. But the whole idea was, we talk to people for a living every day who call us for advice, pay us to talk to us. We're paid to talk to them and give them basic advice. We thought a lot of the general public might want to tune into a podcast so they could learn about the basics of things like divorce, alimony, child support, and really get rid of all the myths and misperceptions out there, right?
Well, and they seem to like our videos.
Yeah, some of our videos are pretty good. So this is kind of an expansion over our videos. Who else do you think might want to listen to us, Jimmy?
I think people out there trying to figure out their next step.
Yeah. I'll tell you who else I think is going to listen to us. Other people in the community
Other
in
lawyers.
Atlanta. And when I say the community, other people who do what we do. People who may employ us for our niche areas that we'll get into, or people who may not have as much practice time and may be looking to gather some information. Maybe people who just know us, who've practiced cases against us, who are just driving down the road and they're bored and they're like, let's hear what that fool Jimmy and Alexa have to say this week. So maybe we may get some of that. So that's kind of the lead into the podcast. But I think we'll get into the mission or our mission statement kind of in a little bit. But before we do that, let's talk about the four of us. So about how many years ago was it we formed the firm of Shewmaker Lewis? Anybody remember?
2019.
Officially,
2019.
2019, and before that, for about 10 years, it was Shewmaker and Shewmaker.
2012, we
That's
became
right.
Shewmaker and Shewmaker.
That's right. And if anybody here is familiar with the process of turning crude oil into gasoline, you basically boil crude oil through miles and miles of pipes to produce gas vapors. And that's pretty much what we did with all of our associates for years and years until we were left just with Jimmy and Alexa Lewis.
So we had to make them partners.
Right, the two that just...
So we're gasoline then?
Well, you're as toxic as gasoline.
Hey,
I guess. No,
you're
I'm
welcome.
kidding. I'm kidding.
You bought this problem.
I know
Alexa's
it.
more of race fuel, and I'm just kind of 87 octane.
Dude, if we're going to be
Jimmy's
fuels,
unleaded.
you're going to be Mogas. Okay, but anyway. So as I said, Shewmaker Lewis is primarily a domestic law firm, but firms that practice domestic law also have to deal with other ancillary issues, criminal law, sometimes bankruptcy, things like that. So we're going to talk about a lot of that stuff.
Hold on. Okay, to be fair, because we throw this around a lot.
Yeah.
What domestic law, for the layperson, what does that mean? I mean, really?
I don't know. Ask Alexa. She knows everything.
Well, I mean, You said it, not me.
Yeah.
Domestic law includes a lot of stuff, right? So it's going to include divorce.
Yeah.
It's going to include custody issues, child support issues,
Yeah.
contempt issues, so violations of any of those court orders.
Right.
It's going to include legitimation, and we'll go way more into detail, but essentially people
Right.
who have children out of wedlock.
Right.
We're going to talk about things like adoptions.
Right.
We're going to talk about the ancillary issues that go into education, that go into
Right.
even some of the issues that we deal with student stuff that's not
Right.
technically domestic,
Right.
but we're still dealing with families. We're dealing with real people.
So we're going to dedicate whole episodes to things like alimony. We're going to break that stuff down. If I dump my old ball and chain, does she get any of my $1 million 401k?
Get it
We're
all.
gonna
I get it all.
We're going to get into all of that stuff. But kind of my vision, and I hope you guys agree with me, is that we also spend some time from time to time talking about new cases that come out in Georgia that are related to these topics and how they may reinforce or change the law, like the new child support laws that are coming down in 2026.
I know we're talking about soon.
And I think there's some interest in celebrity divorces, though they may be in New York or California. We can break some of those down and talk about what those are. And ultimately, I think we may even stray from time to time into other areas that are just interesting to us. I read a case, which we're going to have a whole episode about. You guys don't know this yet. A case over in
Surprise.
Europe. A case over in Europe where the husband divorced the wife, and the grounds for divorce is that she wouldn't have sex with him anymore. And she appealed that case up to like the International Human Rights Court of Europe or something like that. And they said, no, that can't be a basis. And I think we're going to have a spirited discussion about that at a later date.
Holmes sent me that.
Yeah, Holmes sent
It's
that
a
one
good
out.
case. And I read it and I thought about it and I thought this would be the backbone of a good episode because we could loop in the bases for divorce in Georgia and how that compares. So we could talk about a lot of things that may not even be in Georgia, but they might be interesting to people.
Well,
Right.
don't you think people want to hear about who we are?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, how about that, Steve?
All right.
So we can start talking about you first. Okay,
Oh, it's
So
exhausting.
no kidding.
Yeah,
Tell the people.
For us, not for you.
Right. Tell the people where you're from.
Well, that's a hard question for me. I'm from lots of different places, but the answer would be I'm really from right here. I moved around more than military kids move around all the way up through the time I graduated from high school. So really any place I lived more than about 3 or 4 years I consider home. So my homes would be Montgomery, Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, El Paso, Texas. But then when I got in the Army, right after college, I was in Hawaii. So Hawaii is a home of mine. But ultimately, Central Texas is also near and dear to my heart. But ultimately, my wife and I landed here in 2001. Both of us came here to go, primarily for me to go to law school, but we both ended up going at Georgia State. And we've been here for over 20 years now. Our daughter's, her only home is here. So I'm really from here now.
Okay, sounds good.
That's the best I can do.
Well, okay. So with all of that going on, all the moving, all the the Army
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
and all that, what made you go to law school? Why'd you want to be a lawyer?
I like to teach, and I think I reckon.
Whoa. I got to interrupt here.
Yeah, go ahead.
He wanted to be a prosecutor.
Well, I hadn't gotten there
He
yet.
watched
tell the real
Law
story.
and
I'm not
Order,
finished.
Law and Order,
I'm not finished.
like constantly.
Okay, that is true. As a captain, a board captain at Fort Hood, Texas, in the late '90s, I did lay on my couch and watch a lot of Law and Order. That is absolutely a fact. But I've always been a teacher. It's one of my faces, one of my aspects. And I realized earlier in life, I think, than most lawyers do, that a lot of what you do as a lawyer is to teach people, which we're going to get into a lot, I think, in this podcast. But I also like to fight. I like to be in the fight. And, you can't always be a track star or always be on the football field, like Jimmy. Eventually you get old, even if old is 22 in certain arenas. But as a lawyer, I can fight forever. And I like to help people. And every once in a while, not every day, but every once in a while, I like to do some justice.
All right. Alexa, why did you become an attorney?
So when I was little, my dad, as you all well know,
Took you to see Legally Blonde.
No, I wasn't. I appreciate the fact that you think I'm that young, that I was a child when I saw Legally Blonde, so I'm going to take that as a compliment.
We think you're a child now.
Hey,
I'm
love
25
you so much.
years
I just
older
hope
than
you know
you
that.
every day of the week, so you're always going to be a child to me.
I'll take that. I'm
Wait, you're
perfectly
25
okay
years
with
older than her?
Well, wait, what year were you born?
87.
And in '87, I was.
You're 19
You were
years
19.
older.
So
You're
you're
not-
always
okay, I'm
gonna be
19
years older than
You're
me.
right. Hey, but
Oh
you
my
can still
gosh.
call me daddy.
Absolutely not.
Oh my God!
Under
Cut.
no circumstances is that going to happen.
Strike that from the record.
Whatever. It is
All
what
right,
it is.
keep
This
going,
is,
keep
it's,
going.
It's at least it's genuine. He says this shit to me all the time. So when I was little, my dad commented to me as I was what we would probably nicely call a bossy child, that I should be a lawyer because I like to argue and I was good at it. And so when I was going through school, I kind of just focused on that, and turns out I liked it and I was pretty good at it.
When are you going to get good at it?
That's coming.
Please.
That'll be in our next
Please.
episode.
Sorry.
Please.
Jimmy, what about you?
I read too many John Grisham novels when I was a kid.
You think life's a John Grisham novel?
Exactly.
You should be careful
Hey,
because
they're
John
pretty
Grisham.
entertaining.
John Grisham is not very keen on divorce and domestic lawyers. If you know, that's a theme running through his books. He doesn't like us.
I know.
Okay.
Not a lot of people like us.
No,
they just don't know us.
Realistically, I wanted to help people. Mm-hmm. This
That
seemed
and
like
engineering classes were really hard.
well, and there were no girls in them.
How about that?
You know,
how
that's what
about you,
happens.
Patty? Tell us how you got into the law, why you're doing it.
Well, I just got too old to strip. So I had to find another career.
There you go.
Let's keep it interesting, folks.
Patty,
Wow.
You know, Claremont Lounge has no age limit.
It's true. It's true.
You know, I am gonna-
No. There's some self-imposed age limits when you look in the mirror and you're like, yeah, no.
I am going to want
I had a good run.
I am going to want a sidebar button on this podcast. This is only the introduction, so I'm going to want a sound sidebar button. But I would do a sidebar right now. I'd hit a button that goes sidebar, and I would say this. Part of the podcast, I really do want to tie in the community. So I am going to legitimately sidebar. I did go to law school primarily to be a prosecutor. There's reasons why that didn't work out.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons that I was open to domestic law was a guy who's, I'd like to call him a mentor of mine, but I don't call him enough. But I admire him so much. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I do too.
Jim
Jim
McGinnis.
McGinnis.
Jim McGinnis, right. And he's at...
Shout out to Jim McGinnis.
Yeah, absolutely to Jim McGinnis. I was in the very end of law school. I think it was my third year, and I took a class taught by an adjunct professor. That means a real lawyer with a job who came in at night to teach classes.
Yeah, but I remember this. You did not like him at first.
No. The first meeting,
Sorry,
the first
Jim.
of 14 classes with Jim McGinnis,
Yeah.
it was clear to me he didn't like me, and I didn't like him. At the end of that 14 weeks, I think that changed both ways. And what Jim McGinnis taught me was that I'm almost going to get choked up now. He taught me that you could be a domestic lawyer, which I always thought from books and TV was sleazy people. He taught me that you could be an academic, you could be a statesman, you could be classy. And there's probably lots of people out there listening that are like, Shewmaker, I've been to court with you. You are anything but classy.
I've seen you lay on the floor, so.
Well, that's a whole other story for another
Yeah,
episode.
that's during court, by the way.
The point being is that Jim McGinnis showed me the light. He showed me the way, and I've always been grateful for him for that. So that was my sidebar. But
Jim's good people.
Jim's
he's a
a
good
good
guy.
dude.
Maybe one day we'll get him on here. Okay, so where were we? Sorry for that sidebar.
Oh,
I don't know. I was going to ask you about your favorite movie or something, so at least we can understand who you are on a more personal level.
Oh, we're back to me again.
We're back to you. Yeah, I know.
Back
Well,
to
Patty
me.
circled the
favorite,
table, so we're
my
back.
favorite movie?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, movies are so vast, they capture the human experience. You'd have to give me a subset, an area.
No, you do this to people all the time. What's your favorite movie?
Yeah, okay,
gotta pick
absolutely.
one.
Talladega Nights.
There you go.
Ricky Bobby.
If you ain't first, you're last.
That's right. That's right. Well, son, you could be second. You could be third.
Hell, you could even be fourth.
And I will say that Ricky Bobby's father in that movie does remind me terribly a lot of your father, Tucker.
That's the best. He just doesn't smoke, but yeah, he's the best.
No, I mean I have dozens and dozens of favorite movies, and it's really different. And people listening are like, how can you have dozens of one thing? It
Oh, that's
depends on
easy.
it depends on the style or the subject area.
That's easy. I'm just saying you wrote the outline.
I
You
did.
included me asking you what your favorite movie was. You brought this on yourself.
I probably did. Well, what about you, Alexa? What's your favorite movie? And you can't say Legally Blonde.
I wouldn't say Legally Blonde.
good.
I would probably say, let's think, a movie I would watch all the time, no matter what. That's how I would kind of consider my favorite movie. My Cousin Vinny, easily.
My Cousin
Anytime it's
Vinny?
on TV, I will watch it. If not that, Happy Gilmore.
And that's really the qualifier of your favorite movie.
Oh,
if
yeah.
you're flipping through the channels and
And
you
it's
see
on?
it, you stop and watch
Oh
it.
yeah, it's
It's
going,
not
and I'm going to
always
watch
true.
it most likely till the end.
There are some movies that are so bad that they're good, or they're so bad they're funny. And
Oh,
you
you
can't
mean
stop.
Waterworld?
I
Waterworld.
can't
Yeah, I
stop
was gonna say,
watching.
you're the only one who thinks that.
Okay, if we're going somewhere on a Saturday and the TV's on and I happen to hit the channel and there's Dennis Hopper doing his thing in Waterworld, my wife's gonna like groan. She's gonna like throw something
she's
at me.
stuck
I
there
said,
now.
"We have to go." Well, okay, Jimmy, what's your favorite movie? And don't say Boogie Nights.
And you can't say Talladega Nights because Steve already claimed it.
Right.
Point Break.
Point Break.
Original.
Yes, Jimmy actually has a Point Break original movie poster framed hanging in his office
Thanks
in the
to
law
you.
firm. Thanks to me. And Alexa has a My Cousin Vinny
do.
poster in hers. Yeah.
I do. Brings character. It
that's
adds character.
right.
All right, Patty, what's your favorite movie?
So, using the qualifier that if I'm flipping through the
Oh, yeah.
channels and
Yeah.
I see it, I'll stop and watch it. The Devil Wears Prada.
Oh, great movie. Great movie.
Yeah.
Meryl Streep in that
I love Meryl
film
Streep in that.
does remind me a lot of you. I love you, but but there it is. You know who I really like in that movie, and he's one of my favorite actors of all time is Stanley Tucci.
Oh, he's amazing.
I love Stanley
And-
Tucci in just about
and-
everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Except Lonely Bones.
Oh,
No way.
The Lovely Bones.
Well,
And it's awful.
The Lovely Bones,
Lovely.
first of all,
And it's
Lovely.
terrible.
is an amazing movie that I refuse to ever watch again.
Ever again.
But I think he got an Academy Award nomination.
If
or
he didn't,
something
he
for
should've.
that. I mean, somebody look it up. I think he either got the Academy Award or got a nomination for that role.
He
It
was too
amazing.
good, and it was so creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we watched that. It was like the only thing on when we were in.
Okay.
Were we in Iceland?
Yeah. So it's clear to everybody that's listening that we are really movie fans.
Oh,
so
yeah.
probably
So clearly we need to do just a completely separate movie episode.
Yeah.
Well, honestly,
legal
I
movies.
would do
Legal
a
movies.
Break
I
apart
would do a
legal movies.
podcast movie on legal movies that are impactful. That you watch
Or
and
that
you're
are
like
stupid.
something in there motivates me to be better. That would be interesting.
12
And
Angry
then-
Men.
12 Angry Men's a
Well,
good one.
Then we need a separate one on these are just really bad, and here's why.
Yeah,
Or just not legally sufficient in any way, shape, or form.
I would be absolutely motivated to do one on unrealistic legal movies. But I'll tell you one of the best legal movies, and I could dedicate an entire episode to it. Not the new series Presumed Innocent, but the original 1989 movie with Harrison Ford in it and Raul Julia. Raul Julia plays a defense attorney named Sandy Stern, and that's one of the things I can watch. I can watch the scenes in that movie over and over again and say, maybe one day I'll come across that smooth, that good, because he's just really good in that movie. So I would do that. I would talk about that.
So now let's get back to the podcast.
Back to it.
Yeah. So and Steve, you're really kind of the founder engineer. What's your vision for this podcast?
Well, I think I've already said a lot of it. It's to really highlight and in some cases promote the domestic legal community in Atlanta or in Greater Georgia, to also educate lay people on a lot of the fundamentals, to educate other attorneys, maybe younger attorneys that are off on their own, don't have a ton of good mentorship or any, that may want to listen in and pick up things. We would probably get to the point where we encourage those kind of people to call us up because we get a lot of those calls anyway.
Oh, for sure.
I'd love for a new attorney to call me and say, hey, I was listening to your podcast. I got a question for you. I'm like, yeah, what do you got? Those are some of my visions. Ultimately, I'd like to see in this podcast where we bring in as guest speakers some of the people that assist us or even people that we compete with that we think are really hot, that really do good work. It's not always about us. We're the four best. I would gladly bring in somebody that I compete against and say, let's have your perspective on things.
I didn't tell y'all. Our daughter Molly wants to be a guest speaker.
Of course she does.
And I said,
do you want to talk about horses?
I said, on what? And then she's like, well, I don't know. She's like, I have lots of good things to say.
How about growing up as a child of divorce lawyers who's grown up with two essentially an aunt
We
and
hadn't
uncle
even
who
thought
were
of that,
divorce
but
lawyers?
that's not a bad
We
idea.
hadn't.
Just
From
this
her
morning.
perspective.
Just this morning, we were getting ready and
I'd love to hear
upstairs in
that.
our room talking. And what were the two areas we came up with?
Well, one of the topics that we're going to do in a future episode is criminal law that teenagers should know.
Sure.
I mean, you guys heard Molly come home from the basketball game last night complaining about the smell of weed
Yep.
at the
Yeah.
game.
And
Which
I
is
know that
pervasive
there's
everywhere,
teenagers,
but-
but teenagers turn into college students.
Yeah.
And Alexa heads the firm on our Title IX representation in colleges. And I have told high school seniors and college students, if I were in college today, I wouldn't have sex with anybody.
Nobody.
Okay, I would stay away
too
from that
scary.
whole
Yep.
thing.
That would
Be
be
careful. Be careful. Be careful. Be
Keep
careful.
it clean.
That's not necessarily your decision.
That's true.
Okay.
That's true.
That implies that somebody wants to
Right.
do that act with you.
Jimmy, the movie Boogie Nights was loosely based on my 20s.
You wish.
You didn't know that. Okay.
Marky Mark's about to come through that door and
Yeah,
smack you.
right.
Okay. Anyway.
You know, the first time I saw that movie was with a former client of ours.
Yes, I know.
It was hysterical.
That's an awkward
That's
moment. But
awkward. Oh, it
anyway,
was great.
we're sidebarring a lot here. Let's get back to it. So
Isn't
you
that the
asked me
point?
what my vision was. What are y'all's vision?
My vision? Let's see. Probably 10% educational and 90%, how is it you put it, Jimmy? Pure fuckery?
No, I said that we were going to give 110% on this podcast, 10% law, 10% instruction on the law, and 90%. Sorry, Mom. Pure fuckery.
Pure fuckery?
Pure fuckery.
Okay, if we're going to do that, let's have another sidebar. Getting ready for this morning, you came to me and told me that your wife, Alexa, sitting right there, said, I need something non-alcoholic to drink during this podcast.
No. Non-alcoholic-y.
Non-alcoholic-y. And you said, like what? And she said, where's the Prosecco?
No, she didn't even say that.
No.
Jimmy knew.
I just knew what that meant.
No, I said, do we have any Prosecco or something non-alcoholic-y because it's 9 o'clock in the morning? And I'm sorry, you're the only one with liquor in your cups. So.
Not anymore.
Well, fair point. Touche, sir.
My Bacardi is, I have drained my Bacardi.
Probably need to cut that.
I don't
Why?
think so. Anyway.
What's the point?
Yeah, what's the point? Okay, so we all
here to be
have
genuine.
a similar vision, and we're going to coalesce these visions over time.
Yeah.
I
think
also
that-
think that part of it is making our area of law, number one, more accessible to people, right?
Yeah.
Because we do deal with the general population on a daily basis. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like the vast majority of people, when they call us initially, they don't know anything about what they're calling for. They just know they're in a situation that they either didn't create or they created it and they don't know how to get through it.
They don't know what they're calling about,
Right.
or they've been misinformed by somebody else.
Exactly. But I also think we got to bring a little bit of levity to it because it is a tough topic.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we're dealing literally with families who are breaking apart or have already broken apart or were never really a family, but they're trying to navigate the world as if they were.
Yeah.
So bringing a little levity to that can help.
Absolutely.
I think so.
You know, that's a practice point, which maybe we'll get into. You know, people listening that might want to call us who are not lawyers might think, okay, these people are warm, they have a sense of humor. But the learning point here for maybe younger attorneys, hell, even older attorneys might be, it's okay to not be so stiff and to have a sense of humor, okay? I mean, I'll tell a story right now. I walked into a consult with a client not that long ago, and I'm keeping this as generic as possible, and this client had gotten caught in an affair with a coworker. He'd been caught by his wife, who also worked with him. So
Not a great move.
So this is a tight situation. So he shows up in my office
Damn,
for the
I'm in a tight
consult,
spot.
and there's a lady with him, and I introduce myself, and she introduces herself to me, and I'm not sure who this is, and I said, "Is this?" And the guy says, "Yeah, this is the lady I'm having the new relationship with." And
This is your paramour.
This is a good
and
one
I
to call,
said, yeah, well, paramour is a fancy word. We'll have to define that later. But I looked at, I didn't use it in this conversation. And I looked at her, and then I looked at him, and I looked at her, and I looked at him. And Patty's associate, Bonnie, is sitting there next to me, and everybody's quiet. I was like, check out the balls on you. And he had to laugh because, you know.
'Cause you have to.
Yeah. So, you know, yeah. And it's kind of a theme of mine. If you can get people laughing, whether it's a potential client coming in or your
Yeah.
client before court or a judge in the courtroom, if you can get people laughing, they're going your way.
You
Okay.
connect.
Yeah, you
That's how you
connect.
connect.
Yeah, you may
Laughter's
not,
connection.
You may
Yeah.
not be able to take a complete bag of shit and turn it into a win, but you might be able to soften the blow.
Make
Right.
it smell less bad.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
So,
I hope that we also have a good time.
I
we're already having a good time.
yeah. So wait, let's transition real quick,
No,
Jimmy.
and then we got to wrap up.
Well, okay.
One more
All right,
transition.
one more
One more
thing.
tra- one more
Jimmy,
sidebar.
Jimmy, tell me one thing about you that nobody else knows.
Ooh.
But maybe you and your wife.
I've
Nobody
got a
else
good
knows.
one for him.
Well, whisper it to him in his
Oh,
ear.
no, he knows
No,
what it
I-
is.
All right, Jimmy,
No.
what's
You weren't
one
here
thing,
for practice
What's
the other
one
night.
thing about you that nobody knows until right now? Come on.
Say it.
No.
I'll say it then.
All right, Alexa, what's one thing about Jimmy that nobody knows until right about now?
You won't get this, but the majority of our listeners and our associates will. He's currently reading Fourth Wing.
Fourth Wing?
Yes.
Yeah, nobody knows
It's
what that
a
is.
book series. Trust me, he
I had
certainly
to
doesn't
figure out what all
Is
the
that some
fuss
kind of
was
MAGA
about.
thing? What is
No.
it?
It's some
no.
sort of smutty novel.
It's-
No,
it's dragons.
It's
Thank you.
Game of Thrones for girls.
something like that. But our two associates
even
will
more
be.
Game of Thrones than Game of Thrones. So it's Game of Thrones
Nothing's-
for girls.
Yeah.
Nothing's more Game of Thrones than Game of Thrones.
Okay, so we got you. Alexa, tell us one thing about you that nobody knows.
See, I had a hard time with this because
I'm mad at you.
I'm kind of an open book. I don't really have anything that nobody knows. Do I have anything nobody knows? You would know better.
All right.
I
moving
know. I
on.
was thinking about this. I don't
know.
know. Nothing.
Everybody knows you love
Not
your cat
really.
more than me.
I do.
What's
not-
something about you, Steve, that nobody knows?
Yeah, it's a lot harder than you think it is.
Well, I broke into a women's prison one time.
We all know
Everybody
that
knows
story.
that.
The
Everyone
four of
knows
us
that.
know all kinds of stuff about each other. I'm talking about the people out there.
Okay.
Even people out there who know us.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can still do
Steve
a
broke
standing-
into a women's prison. That's
Yeah.
how we met.
Whoa. But now that we have refined this, Alexa, let's go back to you. What's
I mean-
something about you?
I can still do a backflip.
I don't see you doing a backflip.
Too bad we don't have
I don't
room.
have a mat. If I will bring the mat at some point and bring it down here, and I will do it for the podcast.
You know, I'm old enough to remember Christopher Reeves before, and I don't really need to be watching Jimmy wheel you around because you
Yeah.
thought you could do a backflip.
No, I know for a fact that I
Yeah,
can't.
I'm,
Don't you
I'm
worry.
with Steve on that.
Aren't you
No,
like
I'm not.
40?
Shut your mouth.
Aren't you like
No.
40 years old?
No.
If she's 40, that makes you 60.
Maybe. Okay, well,
59.
59. Be careful.
59.
Yeah.
Close
We
enough.
Depends on where we are in the year.
I'm sorry. He rounds everything up.
All right,
All
I'm going to
right.
do Patty's for her. One thing that
Oh,
most
boy.
people don't know about Patty. While at the United States Military Academy at West Point, this
Oh,
is
you cannot tell everybody
yes, I
this.
can. I'm going to tell the world.
This is so misconstrued.
West Point, the military academy where Patty went and graduated, she got a D in a class called team
No, it
handball.
was
Not team. It was handball.
Handball.
handball, not team handball.
Just
This is-
regular
got
handball.
a D, which is one level above an F. And
still
I
not
think
passing.
4 levels below an A, which is normally where Patty lands on everything she does is an A.
It's true.
So Patty got a D in handball. There you go.
And on that note,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us for our inaugural podcast, and we hope that you will join us for our next one.
Absolutely.
That's it. What'd you guys think?
Cut.
How do we do?
Do I hit this? Do I turn this off? Hey, Rob, do I hit this?
That's it for this episode of Lawyers Without Billboards. If you found this episode helpful, make sure to follow and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more resources or to get in touch with us, visit shewmakerandlewis.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.